black is. The source from which all things come. Security blanket for the stars. Understand what black is. It's not a color, it's the basis of all colors. It is not a complexion, it is a reflection of all complexions called human. And out of this blackness, passion flows like a river. Feelings tell the truth. Song and dance and making you laugh are family members. Understand what black is. The breath you breathe, the sweat on your brow, the cheers and the tears balancing the world on your head. Faith is the glue that holds us all together. This is your blackness, not some horror story of lost souls drifting into the land of perversion. Blackest love is a light shining on a path leading to the sun, or caressed in the bosom of the moon. Understand what black is. Power you must yield to. A force so strong, we try to sleep it away. They say you must be electric and plugged in to the sockets of the world. Black is humanity. Understand what black is. Understand black.
You're listening to the Tom Ficklin Show on WNHH LP 103.5 FM, your home for community radio.
Harry, good morning, and thanks for that intro. I'm a little disheveled because what did we do before cell phones, right? Because I either misplaced mine or I picked up my wife's. And so if you're listening, sweets, have your phone and don't be too concerned. And hopefully I might have left mine at home. Reverend Clayton is here with us. Reverend Leroy Dinga Perry is here with us. And they've been on before, but we've talked generally before about health disparities and health being wealth. But we're really going to take a deep dive and kind of share more specifics with you in terms of what does health disparities mean. And we had the pleasure of doing that through the partnership with the Yale Center for Clinical Investigation, the Amy Zion Church, Junta. It's just really a collaboration that really is very important. Obviously, maybe not obviously to some, but Black History Month has started. And really, the theme of the show is Take Ownership of Your Health, Part 2, but also create a Black history for the next generation, create a Black her story for the next generation. So, Reverend Perry, Reverend Clayton, welcome. And Reverend Clayton, glad you're here. You're a veteran now. This is your third time. So that seat's going to put a plaque behind. I know you guys are ministers.
Thank you very much.
Do they still buy pews? Do people still dedicate pews at churches? So should we dedicate these 2 chairs to you guys? Or?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. Okay. As long as we get the $50,000 endowment for it. So again, but literally, this is a serious show, but this is a jovial show in terms of the 3 of us still being on the planet, not in the emergency room and not in hospice. But we have friends that might be, as we speak, going to the emergency room, going to hospice, going through surgery for prostate cancer. And this is the thing to eliminate, to decrease that need for people to have poor health and ill health, even from prenatal, Reverend Perry and Reverend Clayton, from prenatal to hospice. So it's a wide-ranging show, but the theme is, again, Black health is Black wealth, health disparities, but more importantly, what you can do in terms of being proactive and intervene and really manage and take control of your health. So, gentlemen, good morning, and it's really always good to see you. And Reverend Perry, do you want to kind of kick us off?
Well, we had, because our concern is with health disparities, and particularly in minority populations. So as cultural ambassadors, that is one of the things that we are trying to...
Bear with us a second here. I want to get the audio right.
Okay, that better?
Mm-hmm.
All right. So that's one of the focal points of the YCCI program and the cultural ambassadors program.
And so how we have like 45 minutes. Let's delve in terms of how we're going about that in terms of the cultural ambassadors, and really whoever's listening to this show, you're going to be anointed. You're going to be anointed as an ambassador right now. I know that your official cultural ambassadors go through training, but Reverend Perry and Reverend Clayton, we're going to anoint people, share people, baptize people, inspire people to kind of join us on this health equity strategy.
All right. So, for example, the death rate for heart disease is 26% higher in black men than in white. Consequently, life expectancy is lower for blacks than whites among both men. 72.3 versus 76.7 years, and women 78.4 versus 81.4. And if we were to look at the statistics, either from the National Cancer Institute or from our website, 44% of African American or minorities are more likely to die from a stroke. 40% breast cancer. 52% cervical cancer. Asthma 20% higher to the rate of 3. Heart disease 25%. Prostate cancer 2%. And that is very high. So we are more likely to die of either stroke, heart attack, breast cancer, asthma, or heart disease. And so we have to look at why this is. What is the reason behind it? So in our study to look at disparities, we have to also look at the equities that go along with it. So when we say that, we mean that not only do we look at the disease itself, but we have to assess why. So to do that, we have to go into the community. We have to look at what's going on in the community. Is there more added stress? Is unemployment a problem?
Yes.
We also have to look at whether people have access to care.
Yes.
Or information about, how the risk factor for African Americans or minorities in this country. And so I think the YCCI has opened a sleeping dragon, and we're trying to hit the pavement to give the information out so that we can change the statistics.
And again, the YCCI stands for the Yale Center for Clinical Investigation, and the Cultural Ambassadors for Research. And you mentioned the website. If someone's just joining, it's really, this show is kind of a kickoff for Black History Month, that take ownership of your health and create a healthy new generation. Just don't be selfishly that once you die, the world's going to end, but think about what you can do from a proactive standpoint for unborn generation. So the best website for people to find out more information about YCCI and the Cultural Ambassadors is the
YCCI website.
Okay. And there's a link there in terms of the various clinical trials that.
Yes, there's a link there so that you can sign into the EPIC, or you can opt out of EPIC. You can sign up for any studies that we're doing, and we're doing a number of studies. I can't even imagine how many, but I'm sure that there's a study to fit everyone.
And the thing is, you take this intervention because we know that there are medical people forget years ago penicillin, years ago just antibiotics. So new discoveries, new drug things are happening, new therapies are happening, and how can those therapies and drug discoveries be a benefit to us unless we're participating?
That's right.
In these clinical, would you concur with that?
Oh yes, yes. And part of the problem that we're having in our communities is that there is an economic problem. Many of our people are not going to the doctor regularly because they can't afford to go.
So uninsured.
Yes. And if you can't afford a doctor, then these diseases will not be diagnosed early enough.
Indeed.
So that's one of the reasons for the disparities in our death rate, because people are not able to get adequate health care.
And that's one of the reasons I don't want to put words in your mouth. That this, for my, I'm kind of selfish and biased here, gentlemen, in terms of the importance of the cultural ambassadors. Being a thriver, going through a prostate external radiation 10 years ago, and I consider myself to be a thriver and not just a not just a survivor. But again, because of early diagnosis, I'd had two kind of examinations over the last 2 or 3 years leading up to it, and the doctor saw a progression of possibly the cancer spreading, so was able to do the early intervention. But that goes along with what you mentioned, early diagnosis also.
That's correct.
Reverend Perry, you brought some goodies for us, and again, the purpose of this show is for us to, if you really believe that Black history is important, and actually Black history is 24/7, 365, but particularly this month, be proactive. You are a historical agent, so take care of your health, and that health. We know about DNA and virtual reality and all these new things that are kicking in, algorithms, et cetera, in terms of diagnosing health. But it's really important for us to participate and to kind of have someone they can talk to even outside the hospital setting. So the cultural ambassadors, let's just hear a little bit about what the role that they play, because they're really so critical.
All right. First of all, it's important that the drugs and the medical products that people are taking, that they take part in the studies to make sure that these medications will work. Different races, ages, ethnic groups, and genders are included in clinical trials. For us, under the direction of Tisha Johnson, our Deputy Director and Chief Operating Officer, we have focused on raising awareness about the need for minorities and subpopulations in clinical trials. It's working because members of the YCCI team, pastors and lay, are working with the community, and by us working in the communities, we are trusted, and the trust factor is a powerful tool in this area.
And it's so important what you guys mentioned. It's just not the African American AME Zion Church. If I'm an agnostic or even a devil bent person, you'll still talk to me a little bit about the need to. So let the record show, and let's be very clear there. We really not talking about exclusively church members.
No, sir. The community as a whole. And Yale has done a tremendous job at reaching out to the community. There have been health fairs in multiple cities in the state of Connecticut. And at these health fairs, there's an opportunity for people to sign up for a clinical trial of their choosing. And if they get to a certain point where they feel as though that they don't want to be a part, they can opt out.
Yes.
And many people have signed up in the recent years.
That's right.
And because of it, we are getting more and more minorities to be tested.
That's the key. I was thinking Reverend Perry and Reverend Clayton coming in this morning in terms of the Black Panthers, and my mind is kind of all over the place in terms of the importance of Black history. But people know about perhaps the breakfast program that the Black Panthers started, but they may not know as much about sickle cell testing. That was one of the major things of the Black Panther Party when they started, that the need for us to be tested and to try to find a solution for the sickle cell disease. So regardless of whether you're a revolutionary or a terrorist or a Democrat or a Republican, this health thing applies to everybody. We're all going to die at some point. But to think of even many of our so-called revolutionary organizations, I say so-called because they're really just social justice organizations, understood that health is wealth, health that we deserve to be healthy, that particularly in terms of health disparities. Reverend Perry and Reverend Clayton, I was looking at just before I asked you another question, the Connecticut Latino News had an article this past week on racial disparities persist in Connecticut healthcare, and two groups found this out, that racial disparities still persist, although in general Connecticut has a reasonably good health index in terms of Black and brown people. That's not the case at all.
Repeat the question.
No, well, guess what? You were kind enough to bring some health disparity issues with us and statistics, and just to kind of drive that point home. I think as people know that in order to diminish the propensity of these us being high on the profile of subject to cancers, what needs to be done, but people, I think, still need to know how grievous and serious the issue is.
Yes, I think that the stereotypical understanding that minorities have with regard to research or clinical research is in fact part of the problem. And not having the information or the awareness of the new regulations put in place to protect individuals, like informed consent. So that what happened to Henrietta Lacks and what happened in the Tuskegee study and what happened with the studies of African American men in prison and the study with plutonium, the study with that kind of research that seemed to have been without ethics. So by this partnership, we're not only involving the researchers, but now we're also involving the community and empowering patients. So this is a liberating opportunity for us to move forward to help not only the minority community, but the larger community at large. So I think that that's phenomenal. If I may just give this highlight. The Equity Research and Innovative Center called ERIC, which is a part of Yale University, and it's run by, I believe, Dr. Marcella Nunez Smith, working along with Dr. Erica Spatz. What they have recognized due to the hurricanes and all of the tragedies in the island, that minorities there have a greater rate of hypertension, cancer, diabetes, and death as well. So what they've done is they've started a project to look at it along with this group called ECRON, to look at it. So one of the things that they're doing is they're looking at the environment there. They're looking at the conditions. What are the stress levels? They're putting blood pressure kits on those in the study. So every day it will trigger. And so when it spikes, they can write down what they were doing when that happened. Because they realize that when you go into the hospital and you see the doctor and he takes your blood pressure, it might just flare up.
Because it's just being there.
Because you're just being in the hospital. Or just the opposite. You know, you think that, you get home and it flares up and then the doctor's is fine. So since hypertension is a silent killer and one of the things that affect the minority community, they're doing that study to just bring us into a better focus and awareness of how to look at this and maybe then how we can best treat it, but we have to understand the issue first.
Absolutely. And just as you were talking, Reverend Perry, my mind went to the various apps and watches that people wear to kind of do some sort of self-analysis of their biometrics. Really, really important, because even as you indicate, we hear this term social determinants of health, but as you say, it's stress and trauma kind of manifests in a variety of ways, and not to mention that we might have been stressed and trauma for the last 400 years. But and I make a joke, but that's kind of serious too. There's a lot of studies to talk about.
That's right.
What does it mean to be black in America, and being black will you be more subject to hypertension? And the answer is probably yes. Harry, we're going to just go to a few seconds of maybe about a minute or so of the last poets, because I want to kind of throw them in. I want to kind of share with folks during this Black History Month season that the last poets. Folks know about spoken word being so popular and rhythm and rhyme and hip hop, but there's a group called the Last Poets, and there were groups before the Last Poets. You had Conti Cullen before the Last Poets. You had others. You had Phyllis Wheatley, for that matter. So poetry has been part of our kind of genre and our history for so long, but I'm particularly intrigued by this 50th anniversary song that's just released by the Last Poets.
Understand what black is, the source from which all things come, security blanket for the stars. Understand what black is. It's not a color, it's the basis of all colors. It is not a complexion, it is a reflection of all complexions called human. And out of this blackness, passion flows like a river. Feelings tell the truth. Song and dance and making you laugh are family members. Understand what black is. The breath you breathe, the sweat on your brow, the cheers and the tears balancing the world on your head. Faith is the glue that holds us all together. This is your blackness, not some horror story of lost souls drifting into the land of perversion. Blackest love is a light shining on a path leading to the sun or caressed.
Welcome back to the Tom Ficklin Show, and I'm really blessed to have two sojourners. Hopefully, you guys, I know you guys are totally male, but I'll still call you sojourners anyway. And sometimes we guys need to understand that you can be called a favorite term that might be more connected with the female race and still not be the female species and not be intimidated by it. So I consider myself to be a sojourner. I mean, yeah, I know you guys are Nat Turner and et cetera, but there's that kind of mix of the yin and yang. I was just, again, you were listening to the Last Poets there, and Google them, the Last Poets. They're just celebrating their 50th anniversary of being around, and they're really one of the true modern contemporary spoken word artists from my standpoint. Reverend Clayton, when you were talking about the transportation and housing and lack of food and even just personal safety and the disparate treatment and the toll that takes on this, what we call the psyche, but the body, mind, spirit. So the Yale Center for Clinical Investigations, the cultural ambassadors, your denomination is just so key for us to kind of illustrate particularly for Black History Month, that there will be that, you hear that phrase of unity and strength kind of thing, strength and unity, but reaching out, having partnerships, and really the Tom Ficklin Show, really so glad to kind of promote, particularly for this month, but also every month, what does health mean? And just, gentlemen, before I ask you to kind of comment further, it occurs to me, and you might want to comment on this, that if we did have more health equity, white people might even be living longer. My point is that sometimes we forget that white folks, I mean, I'm talking in generalities here, there's these oppressive systems, but they may feel freer. I'm not white, but if I were white, I would speculate that it might be tough having that white identity these days. You're going to have to make some choices, whether you like Trump, whether you like the Democratic thing, whether you're going to help with the social justice movement, whether you're going to put your head in the sand. I think sometimes we discount the stress, if you follow me, on what the white identity is in these days and in times. And if everyone kind of gets on board with social justice for all, I think the whole humanity might be better. Am I making any sense?
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Care to comment on that at all? So not that we need a White History Month, but I'm just suggesting that this is not just us having equity with white people living as long as white person. The whole humanity might live longer.
Well, see, Tom, you open up a very complex dialogue that has long been needed to be discussed. For example, Black History Month is just 1 month. But if we really want to talk about equity, why not have Black history not as an elective, but have it taught as a subject? Mm-hmm. And if that were the case, then maybe the perception that I think is still prevalent in this nation with regards to racism, maybe white state troopers would not shoot Black individuals because they fear them because of their color. The profiling that goes on, the stereotypes that are labeled on people of color is due to an ignorance and a lack of understanding of the history of America. America is not just a history of other immigrants, it's a history of all of the immigrants, along with the Native Americans. So I think that's an important issue, and I think what we do with health equity and disparity is that we lift up
indeed
that there is another part of the nation that's suffering, and they're at the bottom, and we need to know why, and we need to fix it because it is a problem.
Amen to that. When you referenced the recent West Haven shooting, but you could have been referencing anyone of Chicago or Cleveland, it doesn't matter, Florida. It occurs to me, and this is a bad joke, but in terms of the most recent situation where the gentleman was driving and then stopped and shot, if it was a stolen car, I mean, between Stanford and West Haven, he passed at least, let's say, 5 car lot dealers. So there's cars around. If it's just a matter of a car, if I'm a car dealer, I'll give you. You don't need to steal a car. I'll give it to you. I mean, so it's, you say this issue of capitalism and how we value lives, and if it's just not that he had gold bars in the car, right? Not that he had bitcoins in the car. So what's value and what's perceived to be value is really a question. And life is value. Healthy life is value.
And that officer was not in fear of his life, and the individual was trapped in the car.
Mm-hmm.
And I just can't help but wonder, had that been a person of another race, would they not have waited that out or sent someone in then to negotiate because all lives matter.
Yes. Reverend Clayton, any comments in that regard? I'm tempted to ask you guys what the text was yesterday in your church, but that's kind of a personal thing because I didn't go to church yesterday, so but I won't go there. But we'll go there next time.
Well, mine was the Lord of the Sabbath. I was trying to say that that God is in control, even in a withering nation that's reflecting its rottenness by its apathy. That God is still in control. So we are hopeful on every front that the rule of God will inevitably hold us together.
Mm-hmm. And so speak to that point in terms of those of us that might not be Christians or might be Muslims or might be even the Jewish folks. I mean, we don't hear the term Judeo-Christian as much anymore, which I really loved. But belief systems are important, and this show is about us exercising your belief system in a positive way. How can you share with others? How can you demonstrate with others? How can you epitomize what does a hopeful person mean on the planet? So if you're a mother or father and you've never been into religion, that's not a problem. There you have a young person that's looking up to you for help. And as a parent, you want to maybe be around. I say maybe because that's a personal choice. Be around for a long time to provide for them, to see them go to college. So this health equity issue intersects so many. It's a living and breathing matter.
Oh, absolutely. And I think for every mother who worries about her son when he goes out and connects to the community, whether he's out late, whether he's driving a car, with the opiate crisis being out there, with the kinds of violence that takes place in Black youth, we have concerns. But I mean, the one concern that we can look at is our health concerns. Which brings me to another thing.
Sure, please. Yeah.
The Yale is working toward doing a study on genes. So this genotherapy is so important to us in the community. For example, 1 out of 25 African Americans will die of congestive heart failure. Breast cancer, ovarian cancer, prostate cancer, colon cancer, stroke, and heart attack. Now, there's a gene study that would have cost maybe $2,000 for you to take it on your own. Or you can probably take the 23andMe and learn about the BRCA1 and 2. But they've discovered that if the BRCA genes 1 and 2, cancer, ovarian cancer, prostate cancer, can be detected.
Detected early, yes.
Yes.
That's safe.
And the TTR for congestive heart failure. So can you imagine that people who have passed away due to heart failure or congestive heart failure, had they had this kind of resource, they could have been guided toward whether or not they could get some early detection and prevention. And so partly what we do also is about early detection and prevention. It's about what to eat and exercising and how important that is, and to look at obesity because these are contributing factors to diabetes and to so many of our other ills. But when you're in a community and you don't have a Whole Foods that you can go to or Stu Leonard's and you're eating a lot of processed foods and no one has stopped to talk to you about this, it accumulates, and at some point you have to pay the piper.
Again, it's so well said. Take ownership of your health for this generation and future generations. Reverend Clayton.
Yes, it's very important that we watch our diet. It might be a lot easier for a mother to stop at McDonald's or Burger King, but in the long run, it will cause health problems later in life. And going back to what Dr. Perry was talking about, the gene study, Yale has done so much to involve the community or to bridge the gap in this area that members of our local church got involved in this study.
Perfect.
So the word is continuously to grow, and what we want our listeners to understand that there may be a study out there that will suit your needs.
Indeed, and go to the Yale Center for Clinical Investigation. Go to the there's a drop down on Discover, and I love the word Discover, gentlemen, because again it's a quest. It's a discovery quest for all of us, and to be part of that journey. If you're not on the ship, you're going to be left out. If the ship sails without you, it could be a problem. And then just as a side note, although many of our folks might have heard this before, research institutions, particularly Yale, is one of the premier research institutions in the world. So don't sleep on the fact that on the opportunity to be involved with really history making from so many standpoints, from so many standpoints. But again, if you're listening anywhere on the globe through the internet, again, connect with your hospital, connect with your doctor, connect with your research institution that might be near you. Definitely go to the YCCI website and look at the information there. There's just so much. When I think of Sisters Journey, which is a group here in New Haven that's really is very, very much involved with, I call them the breast cancer abolitionist kind of thing. And you guys and the cultural ambassadors, from my standpoint, ambassadors is a nice term, United Nations term, but it's an abolitionist movement. It's an abolitionist movement.
If I can say, one of my long-term hopes for this program is that out of it can come a recruitment and early training for minorities who want to become or get involved in the healthcare field.
Indeed.
Because we need more block doctors and nurses and technicians and researchers. And I think that if you're going to be honest about what we're trying to do, then we need to go to that level.
Community health workers as well.
And community health. In fact, Yale sponsored the training for all of our ambassadors to become community health workers. So we did the training, and eventually we will do the certification.
Perfect. Really important. You listen to the Tom Ficklin Show and take ownership of your health, take ownership of your family's health, take ownership of your nieces and nephews and the whole 9 yards. Family members you might not want to admit or acknowledge, but take help them also with their quest. Gentlemen, this has been great. We have about 10 minutes. Let's kind of carry on. I didn't know with Reverend Perry if you have any additional statistics, and we have the brochure there. It's just so important in terms of Black History Month that we realize that we are our own health agent. And again, there's going to be stresses and strains and obstacles presented. But as you referenced, finding your faith claim, whatever that might be, can really also be a daily stimulus.
Well, if I can give a plug out to a couple of books I think might help people.
Perfect.
The Emperor of All Maladies is one, and Medical Apartheid. So The Emperor of All Maladies is a book about cancer. And my understanding at one point, having no knowledge about cancer, was that cancer could have already had a cure, and that they let it linger because they make so much money from it. But once I read this book and and got a better understanding of the etymology of cancer and how it progressed, it was mind blowing. It's like
the Emperor. Repeat the title again.
The Emperor of All Maladies.
The Emperor of All Maladies.
And so what the author talks about, Siddhartha, what he talks about is that in Boston Hospital when the young children came in and they were dying of cancer, and the doctors were saying, "Well, we'll see you tomorrow," and tomorrow never took on any flesh. They couldn't figure out what was going on.
Yes.
So Dr. Farber and his people started looking at the cells, and they determined that there was some white cells cancer that was eating from the inside out. And so they found that they thought they found the cure. They took folic acid from one of the minority physicians who they would not hire, but just went on to be a pharmacist. And the folic acid, he started giving it to these young kids, and the kids started living longer. He was ready to, do his thesis and his paper and say, we found the cure. But cancer has a way of masking itself, and it is a demon. And it found that folic acid, well, we won't take, we'll fight this. And so then it just started talking about, where does it come from? So they had some students who were cleaning chimneys in London, and the soot were getting into their lungs. And when they went to the doctor, they found out that, wow, all these have the same symptoms. All of them have cancer. Where did it come from? And then they said cancer can also come from without. So the genetics and that.
Yes.
Even the father of medicine, the father of medicine, the father of medicine was not Hippocrates.
Agnaton.
No, it's the African father of medicine. I can't even think of his name. Anyway, he looked at it and he kept a journal of all of his patients. And when he found the cancer, he said, "There's nothing that I can do." And so even when they looked at all the cultures, they saw that it is something that has been here for a while. And that's my point, that it's been here for a while, and that, we've been trying to find different ways, from radiation to surgery to drug immunology. And so one of the last things that they discovered is that they can take a gene and genetically alter it so that when it goes into the body, it can, for cancer cells, it could go into the body and the cancer cells would not recognize it, but it would recognize the cancer cells and put up a wall. Because somehow these cancer cells mask themselves so well that our immune system and our body system won't see them. But this new study, so I'm saying there's always something on the horizon.
Definitely.
That's out there.
Definitely. Reverend?
Let me just add something. One of our ministers was diagnosed with cancer and was at the later stages, and he was asking his doctor, did he have anything else that could help him? And the doctor said, I don't have anything else right now. We've exhausted everything that we've had to try to help you. And he was persistent. Doctor, there must be something. And so the doctor says, there's one drug that tested well in the laboratory animals, and we tried it in white men, but it failed. He said, if you're willing to try it, he said, I'm all for it. He tried this new drug, and he had great success. So what does that tell us? Sometimes it may not work in one population, but will work well for us. So it's important that our people speak to their doctors if there seems to be no other way. Ask the doctor if there's some study or some new medicine that might help their condition.
Indeed, so important.
And it's Imhotep.
Imhotep. Indeed. Mention the title of that book again.
The Emperor of All Maladies. And Medical Apartheid. So in Medical Apartheid, she studies in this country how African Americans were used in experimentations when the medical field was just beginning. So how the slave could go into town and come back with one arm missing or a toe because they were using it for experimentation, because the slave wasn't really a human being, it was property. They could put the slave in a ditch and pour hot water on him to see how long he could endure it and what would be the effects of it. They had these grave diggers or grave robbers that would go into the black cemeteries and excavate the body so that they could be taken to these different hospitals or labs, because they needed the training in order to be able to be quote doctors. And so, even in this country, and you see it in some offices, the doctors would have a skeleton hanging in the office.
Mm-hmm.
In Waterbury, there was one
In the museum.
in the Mattituck Museum
Mm-hmm.
named Fortune. His body had been there for 200 years. When his wife came in, she would see her husband as she was dusting it, and you can imagine the trauma that did to her. So when I was in Waterbury, 3 of the major churches got together, and along with the Episcopal Church, and we said these bones need to be buried, and they were buried almost 500 feet from the master on a hill in Waterbury in the cemetery. But I mean, that's
Sure. And you mentioned Medical Apartheid. That's by Harriet Washington.
Yes.
Google Medical Apartheid, Harriet Washington. There's a number of videos that she has up. She's spoken here at Yale. YouTube videos, go to YouTube. But the book is worth reading, and it blows your mind to use that old school vernacular. I'm sure the kids have a different expression for that. But it drives home the point of why we're here in 2020 trying to talk about. We may not be able to reverse history, but we can certainly change history moving forward. History is always a proactive thing. And Medical Apartheid by Harriet Washington. And her presentation is somber, it's academic, it's direct, it's not polemic, it's not that she's ranting and raving. These are just the facts about how the medical system has not been that advantageous to us, but we can be a part of it being more advantageous for not only us, but for all humanity. Reverend Clayton? Okay, well, Harriet Washington, I'm so glad you referenced her. I just thought I'm just reading. I see you have a thought in your mind.
I just agree with what you and Dr. Perry has said about.
I call him Odinga. You call him Doctor, but that's okay.
Well, you guys go back to 1950.
1849.
When dirt was
1492, 1619. We go back.
But I'm pretty close to you guys. So.
Yeah, you are. You remember the family. I don't remember your lost cousin. I'm sorry I interrupted you.
But I will say, speaking from a biblical point, our Lord said, He come that we might have life and have it to the full.
Mm-hmm.
A full life is a life of good health, along with other things that we acquire in life that He's given us.
Mm-hmm.
So I urge that the listeners will take care of themselves in every way so that they can live a long and prosperous life. I mentioned earlier, watch your diet, fruits and vegetables. And I'm preaching about fruits and vegetables, but I'm a cake lover. And I have to cut back.
Yes.
Because of various reasons. But it's important that we just take ownership of our bodies and our health so that we can be better.
Again, you listen to the Tom Ficklin Show. We're wrapping up, and I'm going to give you gentlemen the last word. And again, the Yale Center for Clinical Investigation is so important, but they've partnered with the cultural ambassadors for research, with partners with the Amy Zion Church, and open to partners. They've partnered with us here for the Tom Ficklin Show, and actually, I'm going to do a lot of health things for the rest of the year that I'll talk more about. Please.
Yes, and I also want to say that we've also partnered with the FDA Office of Minority Health and Health Equity. And I think that's a great partnership because we're looking at the same issues to increase the amount of clinical trial data available on racial and ethnic minorities, improve data equality, and determine how minorities react to medical products, and increase transparency and access to available data.
Important, so important. So important. Reverend Clayton, last word?
I just want to share with the listeners that you can go to yalestudies.org.
Okay. Good.
Or you can call 877-978-8343.
Repeat that again, please.
yalestudies.org or 877-978-8343. Perfect.
Information is power. Gentlemen, thank you so much. We'll see you soon. It's just been a pleasure to kind of break this mental bread with you guys. I haven't done the actual communion, but maybe one day I'll find my way to a Sunday service. And
We'll help you.
Pray for me. Help me. Send me the directions.
All
Send
right.
me the directions. Harry, thank you for everything. We're gonna close out with the last poets. Their a song from their 50th anniversary, and it's just remember who you are. Remember who you are. Remember who you can be. Remember who you were. Remember the past, the present, and strive for the future. Take care, everybody.
The source from which all things come. Security blanket for the stars. Understand what black is. It's not a color. It's the basis of all colors. It is not a complexion. It is a reflection of all complexions called human. And out of this blackness, passion flows like a river. Feelings tell the truth. Song and dance and making you laugh are family members. Understand what black is. The breath you breathe, the sweat on your brow, the cheers and the tears balancing the world on your head. Faith is the glue that holds us all together. This is your blackness, not some horror story of lost souls drifting into the land of perversion. Blackest love is a light shining on a path leading to the sun, or caressed in the bosom of the moon. Understand what black is. Power you must yield to. A force so strong, we try to sleep it away. They say you must be electric and plugged in to the sockets of the world. Black is humanity. Understand what black is. Understand black. Black is humanity. A beautiful chord on a 12-string guitar that makes you smile, that offers comfort in turbulent times, provides food when there is nothing to eat, a shelter when there is nowhere to live. Black is humanity, making hope stand tall and not wilt, because black knows. Did it before, tested by fire, washed in the waters of life. Black is hot, black is cool, black is wise, and could never be a fool. Understand what black is. Black is a hero, not a villain. Black is the essence, sealed with a kiss. Black is a stone to build our dreams on, a shadow at evening's mist. Bigger than reality, blending in to the night, to let the sun chill and watch the stars dance in rhythm, in music, to our souls. Understand what black is.
Oh yeah. Knowing that each other was promised to another, we didn't care. Instead we tried to keep our feelings strong, based on the love we knew was wrong, but we didn't dare to say goodbye. So now my life has changed so much from long ago, and I don't know who you are, though you appear to be my star. And now you suffer the decision that you made, whom our role has been played, and our story starts to fade. Sad to know that you never loved me. Sad to know you weren't who I thought you'd be, and the promise made you couldn't keep. Realizing that you could never really be true, still I took a chance with my heart. My friends say it's better for us not to be together. Why do I rue the day that you died in my heart? So now you've got him lying in the bed I made, but it wasn't a fair trade. With my emotions you played. So now all the selfish things that you do will come rushing back to you. And what are you gonna do? Sad to know that you never loved me. Sad to know weren't who I thought you'd be, and the promise made you couldn't keep. Ooh. Oh. Oh yeah. He was always around when I wasn't there. His presence in my absence, never a question. It hurts to know you gave your love out of care. Well, I don't have to stick around. The dagger you stuck in my heart's still there. It hurts to care. So now you've got him lying in the bed I made, but it wasn't a fair trade. With my emotion you played. So now all the selfish things that you do will come rushing back to you. And what are you gonna do? And what are you gonna do? Sad to know that you never loved me. Sad to know you weren't who I thought you'd be, and the promise made you couldn't keep. Sad to know that you never loved me. Sad to know weren't who I thought that you would be, yeah. And you never loved me, baby. hand. I just want to dance. I just want to dance.
See my YouTube channel at SpideyGirls/Bella. You are listening to WNAH LP 103.5 FM, New Haven, streaming live on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter. Follow and share.
Good morning and welcome to WNHH FM's Dateline, New Haven. I'm your host, Paul Bass, inviting you to look behind the headlines on the stories that make our community tick. Daniel Reyes and Bruni Pizarro make New Haven tick. They're the outgoing and incoming chiefs, respectively, of Junta for Progressive Action, New Haven's oldest and one of its leading Latino advocacy, youth, and social service agencies, and we'll find out if I accurately described it. They're here in the WNHH studio today to tell us what Junta's been up to and what's coming next. And I want to thank Yale New Haven Hospital for providing support for today's program. Welcome, folks. Thanks so much for coming in.
Well, thank you for having us.
So it's big news anytime there's anything going on at Junta. And so the transition's happening February 1st, right?
Yes, February 1st.
But you're both on board now because
Yeah.
Daniel's helping Bruni get used to it. That's nice.
Yeah.
'Cause
Yeah, it's been great that we've been able to kind of facilitate the transition.
Because sometimes someone feels bad, they're leaving, and the next person coming in singing the different, or whatever.
Yeah.
Well, when I first heard that Daniel was leaving, I was like, I like literally had I gasped. But yeah, I'm really happy for him. I'm so proud of him.
What's it like, if you don't mind getting a little closer to the mic, Bruni? What's it like to go into work when you're both in charge? Are there any issues there, or is that just like if you were working at the military or something? Like Al Haig coming and saying, I'm in charge of Junta.
Well, I think I'm spending a lot more time trying to tell her you're in charge.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
I'm trying to like step back a little bit, provide the space so that she can really kind of take the lead. So,
and just so people know, did I say Junta right? So Junta's the oldest Latino advocacy group in town. It doesn't just advocate on issues for the Hispanic community. It also does social service, whether it's English second as a language, youth programs for kids, helping people link up to government services, and other ways to deal with help they need. Am I missing anything?
No, yeah. So we are, we really kind of frame it around the oldest Latinx multi-service agency. So we really focused on the social, civic, and economic advancement of Latinx communities in the greater New Haven area. We do work in youth and youth services, teen leadership, social services, economic advancement, ESL, bilingual GED. We're really focused on the census right now. So
That's a
lots of
biggie.
work.
Yeah. And, as we all know, Junta went through a transition about 20 years ago. Kika Matos came in, and it had been sort of dying out, but it had this beautiful building, and it had this new community growing of immigration. So the Latinx, community used to be primarily Puerto Rican, New Haven, though never totally. And now it's become multifaceted from all over the world, and we welcomed with open arms that Junta played such a key role. And as the building got restored and beautified, so did the whole program. The whole community came around it. Board people like Rafael Ramos to take kids on cultural trips,
Big Turtle Village,
shopping, camping, and when the raids happened, Junta was the epicenter of with going back against ICE. So, and it's such an important part now. One thing that's changed over the years too is the word Latinx.
Yes.
So whether you say Latina, Latino, and we get a lot of pushback on that in both directions. So we cover tends to be younger people who want to use Latinx, saying you don't want to be binary about gender or assume that it's male, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then other people say, in fact, that's not what most people in the Hispanic community, I guess I'm using those words interchangeably, to use. What do you folks think?
Well, I mean, I think we probably have similar thoughts on it. I really think that, Junta bears a great responsibility as the oldest organization in the
and how
state.
old are we talking?
50 years.
All right.
So we just celebrated 50 years in
go.
2019. So, I think that from my perspective as leader, I really think it's about being as inclusive as possible. And first and foremost, Hispanic, Latino, Latina, Latinx, all of those are terms that are put on a conglomeration of countries, So it's basically...
That's always been tricky.
It's a way to kind of like make people who don't speak English or speak this Spanish language kind of fit into a box. So, we're already to begin with operate from this deficit because we're being basically pigeonholed, know. So I do think that, over the course of time, communities have tried to assume and own these terms, and I think we have to be mindful of that. And I do think that the terms are evolutionary, and they do change, and they have changed
Language
over time.
is living, and that's what we praise. And I always love to watch that. When do we embrace a change in language? Because it comes from the grassroots. Language is about communicating, so people are speaking a certain way. But on the other hand, when just a few people are speaking a certain way, you're not going to understand each other if you don't have some kind of set rules that don't change so quickly.
Yes,
Absolutely.
yes.
I mean, do you have thoughts about that, Bruni, about how we
do.
watch language change? Yeah.
Well, I mean, my background is I'm a researcher, I'm a scholar. In particular, I'm a race and environment scholar.
Yeah, I had a feeling you might have some thoughts. If you can get a little closer to the mic.
Yes. So, yeah, as I said, I'm a race scholar, first and foremost. And I think that I'm open always to conversations about this because I do know that there are different perspectives in our community. Since we're not a monolith. Thank you. We're not a monolith as an ethnicity. There's a lot of histories and unique particularities that we have that we bring to the table. And I think it's important to respect that. As a community, I think Junta does a great job to like honor, respect, and make sure that we're not in competition, right? Because that's not what it's about. That there's no ethnic competition, that we're here to serve. And in terms of Latinx, in terms of that word,
Oh, so it's Latinx, not Latinx.
I say it in like my Spanglish, I don't know, Latinx. I say that, or I say Latinx. I mean,
I had the emphasis wrong. I was emphasizing the last paragraph. Last syllable, yeah.
You know, even my name, Bruni, I do roll my R's. I mean, very rarely do I say Bruni, but it just comes out depending on.
I'm going to try not to because it will sound ridiculous if I try to do it. That's in my intention. So you're thinking that you're navigating a line, if I'm hearing you correctly, about being as inclusive as possible with language and respecting all sides.
Absolutely.
And, you know, every community has this. I think maybe more dramatically in the Hispanic/Latinx community. All communities have it. So African-American community, I still hear people. So the rest of the country said when Jesse Jackson cleared in 88, we should be called African-American. All the white media said that. The Boston Globe had this hilarious automatic change when they said a company was in the black. It was changed. The company was in the African-American. But then you hear race scholars who from the black community say, well, we don't like that term. We're not all from African. There are within our community different stories from Caribbean American, African American versus people came here for slavery. And of course, what could be more dramatic than in your community where some people, Mexico, Peru, some are third generation, some are first generation, some